Chapter 4. This is section 4.1. We're going to apply triangle sums property. The triangle sums property says you can take any triangle. And if I take any triangle and I take all the measures of the angles, what does that add up to? 180 degrees, right. So it's 180 degrees. Okay, and I'll show you something cool at the end of the hour about triangles and why that's always true. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. So the sum of the measures of the angles of a triangle, and I'm sorry that the little symbols are kind of off, they add up to 180. So let's take a look at this one. What does this little thing mean right there? It's 90 degrees. So if this is 90 degrees, let's call this x. So 90 plus 58 plus x equals 180. Okay, combine like terms, so 1, because I'm tight. 48 plus x gives me 180, and x gives up me 32, and it's degrees. Don't forget the degree symbol. That's what a lot of students forget. Okay. We're okay with that. Is that pretty, it's pretty easy, pretty basic. It gets more difficult, so just bear with me. Okay. Let's go to this next one. I don't have a right angle. I think this looks obtuse, but I'm not quite sure. So let's take a look. Let's call this y. So I've got 26 plus 36 plus y equals 180. And we want to set it up like that because in the proofs, we would say triangle sum property. Okay. So I end up with 62 plus y equals 180. Again, this is not a spectator sport. Make sure that we're taking notes, please, okay? And I end up with y equals 118 degrees. Boop. Okay. So again, I know this is really easy and most of you know how to do it. I am just doing it to show you how the work is done. Let's take a look at this one. This one's a little bit layered. Make my font smaller. I need to find A, B, and C. And on problems like this, students get really hung up. I have to solve for A, and then I have to solve for B, and then I have to solve for C. That's not necessarily true. Sometimes you solve different angles at different times. This one, you do solve in order, but don't get hung up on I have to do A first. Sometimes it's better to solve for C first. Okay, but I can solve for A first. How do I solve for A?
60 plus 42 plus A equals 180.
Very good. So just like what we had done before, so 102 plus A equals 180. If the lowercase a looks like a 9 to you and it confuses you, you can always use an uppercase A. That wouldn't bother me at all. Okay. And so A ends up giving me, I've got 78 degrees. Okay, so this is 78. Now let's keep going. What do I do about B and Y? How do I find it? Yeah, why is that? Why is 78 plus B equals 180? Why? They're supplementary angles. Very good. Linear pair. Yep, all of those answers. Plus B equals 180. So B ends up giving me, I have 102 degrees. Okay, so this is 102. And then C, I'm going to take what I had before. So 40 plus 102 plus C equals 180. 142 plus C gives me 180. C ends up giving me 38 degrees. Now, one thing students will say, Mrs. Medvick, what would happen if for A, rather than 78, I added wrong and I got 76? What would happen to B and C answers? They'd be wrong, right? That's why work is so important. So I wouldn't like give you a B because all of them are wrong and take a half a point on everything. Again, I take a look at the whole thing. The work is there. You made a small error. It's still in the A range. Okay, that's why it's really important to show your work and I can see what's going on. Okay. Questions on those? All right, let's keep going then. I've got this now. What do these little things mean? They're parallel. So if I've got parallel lines, what do you think I'm going to be looking at when I've got my picture? What are some things that go with parallel lines that we just learned? Yeah.
The alternate interior angles, alternate exterior,
Right.
Corresponding angles.
That's correct. So all of the things that we learned in the past, alternate interior angles are congruent, alternate exterior angles are congruent, corresponding angles are congruent, consecutive interior angles are supplementary. So if they give me parallel lines, I know some of that is going to play into my problem. Otherwise, why would they give it to me, right? All right, so let's take a look at this. If I have parallel lines, what could I conclude? What are some things I could say? Yeah.
X and Y equal each other.
That's correct.
Alternate interior angles.
Yes, if parallel lines and alternate interior angles are congruent. So those are congruent. I do know that. So once I get one, I've got the other. But now I got to get there. So what do you think? What could I do? Yes. Nope, that's fine. Yeah.
The top right angle is 52 degrees because alternate interior angles.
Okay. Yeah, very good. So this right here is 52. So he's saying right here, this is also 52. That is correct because alternate interior angles. You are right. So that's good. Yes.
The top of the bottom triangle is 89 degrees because it's supplementary with the 91.
All right, very good. So he's saying that I'm going to take this angle right here, and I'm going to take that 91 degrees, and they are a linear pair. They are supplementary to each other. And so I'm going to show that. I'm going to go y plus 91 equals 180. Oops, I'm sorry, I can't do y. I'm going to put z. My bad. Because I already have a y. Screw that. Let's do z. There we go. So then z ends up giving me 89 degrees. So this right here is 89 degrees. So now things should kind of start coming together. So what can I do? Yeah.
You know that the other angle is 89 degrees because it's
Good, they're vertical angles. Do I need parallel lines for vertical angles? Nope, I don't. Okay, now what? How do I solve for x or y? Yes, ma'am.
52 plus 89 plus x.
Very good, absolutely. So I can go 89 plus 52 plus x equals 180. Add them together, I get 141 plus x equals 180. X gives me 39 degrees, and then y is also 39 degrees. Now, do I have to solve for x, or could I solve for y and then know what x was? I can solve for either, right? Yeah, and I'd get the same answer. No? Are there any questions? Notice how once you figure one piece out, the rest kind of trickles down. That's very common with these types of problems. All right, let's look at this one. I've got a 90-degree angle. I know that if that's 90, this is also 90 because they're a linear pair, right? So how do I go about this then? Yes, ma'am.
90 plus 40 plus x is equal to 180.
Very good. So then 130 plus x equals 180. X gives me 50 degrees. Very good. So then this right there is 50 degrees. And then for y? Yes.
You could do y plus 70 plus 90 equals 180.
Yes. So y gives me, I got 20 degrees. Questions on that? Am I going too fast? We're okay? All right, let's move on then. How do I handle this one? This seems a little more complicated. Yes,
X and Y are congruent because they're vertical angles.
very good. They are vertical angles, so they are congruent. So I'm going to mark on my picture. Yes,
Take the 83 plus 41 plus x equals 180.
very good. Plus 41 plus x equals, here's that 180 stuff again. So a lot of 180 stuff. I got 124. And I got x equaling 56. And then y equals 56. There's no extra work for y. And we can just say vertical angles are congruent. Questions? Fabulous. All right, let's keep going. Some definitions. First one, exterior angle. An exterior angle is an angle formed by a side and the extension of a side. So what they're saying is I can take any side. It doesn't matter what side it is. And I can extend the side. And when we talk about an exterior angle, this right here, that's the exterior angle. If I extend this side, this is an exterior angle. It's outside the shape, and it's an extension of that side. Okay. It can happen anywhere. Like I can extend any side. So like I could extend this side like this, and then this would be the exterior side. So there's tons of them. Remote interior angles, the two non-adjacent interior angles to the exterior of a triangle. Blah, 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 blah. This is what it means, okay? This angle right here is the exterior. We know that. We just learned that, right? When they talk about the remote interior angles, they're talking about these two. They're not touching the exterior angle, okay? Those are the remote interior angles. AKA, they just don't want to be around that exterior angle. It's like cooties. They don't want to touch it. Ew. Okay. Let's keep going. The measure of the exterior angle of a triangle equals the sum of the two remote interior angles. This is what it says. So the exterior angle in this example is 1. So this is 1. And what this theorem says is that if I take the two remote interior angles and I add them together, they equal angle 1. Now, if you think about it, just think about it for example. It makes sense. Because if you'll notice angle 1, look at this angle right here. The angle that I just highlighted in 1, how many degrees do they equal?
180.
180, right? Take a look at the triangle. How many degrees does that equal? 180. So it only makes sense that 2 and 3, when I add it up, is going to equal 180. Okay? It's not really something you have to memorize. It's just if you kind of understand what's going on, it makes sense. It's like, well, duh. Okay? But that will come in handy when you solve problems. So let's take a look at this one. It says find the measure of the exterior angle. Let's label this x, that exterior angle. So x is going to equal 80 plus 25. So x gives me 105 degrees. Go to the next one. Let's call this y. Oops, there we go, y. So y equals 15 plus 110. So y gives me 125 degrees. And that's it. That's what it would, it's that simple. It's not like big. Questions? All right, let's keep going. Try to get this done. It says fill in the blanks. Blank is bigger than blank. So if I take a look at the angles, I know 3 is bigger than angle 1, And 3 is also bigger than angle 2, and that makes sense. I don't know if 1 is bigger than 2 or 2 is bigger than 1. I don't know that. But I do know that angle 3 would be bigger than the other 2. Okay, that I do know. All right, let's classify some triangles. First of all, by their sides. So if I know that all the sides, and that's really important, students get confused. I'm going to do sides first, and then I'm going to do angles. They're 2 different ways of classifying. It's kind of like I'm going to categorize you as either a boy or a girl, and then I'm going to categorize you by wearing glasses or not wearing glasses. Students get them confused. They are 2 different classifications. Okay? So first let's look at the sides. If all the sides are congruent, what do I call this?
Equilateral.
That's right, equilateral. Oops. Now, I'm not saying it has to be perfectly spelled, but I got to know what the heck the shape is, okay? A lot of times on the test, the words are on the test, so you can find them on there, okay? All right, let's take a look at that. If I have 2 sides that are the same, I call it isosceles. You've actually learned that probably in 3rd grade. Okay. And then a shape that all the sides are different is called, yeah, scalene. I heard it. Scalene. Scalene. Okay, so those are sides. On your test, I will have triangles, and I'll ask you to classify by sides and then by angles, and you can't flip-flop them. It specifically asks you. So make sure you know the difference. Now let's come down here and let's take a look at the angles. If all the angles are the same, we call them equiangular. And that only makes sense. Equa is like equal. How about this one?
Acute.
It's a cute little triangle. Remember my shirt? It's a cute little angle, and I had the little cheeks, and it's just, oh, it's so cute. It's like a little baby. Okay. A cute triangle, all the angles are acute, less than 90. Yep. This is a right triangle because it has that right angle. We'll be spending a lot of time with right triangles this quarter. Trig is all based on right triangles. Okay. And then finally, the poor obtuse angle. Still wants to be loved. This is the angle that classifies it as obtuse because it's obtuse, which is greater than 90 degrees. That's right. Okay. So there's some classifications. All right. And notice that that's standard 4B. Right. So that's all we got for today. You've got a nice chunk of work time. I'll be around to answer questions. Yeah. So let me know if you have questions.